Okay, guys, welcome to this Monday's Wealth Creation Show. And today we're going to talk about disruptive changes and how you could leverage them to help your own wealth and success. So today we're going to explore, as I say, leveraging those disruptive changes and how they could really be harnessed to help you create and achieve success. I think firstly though, that you probably need to understand what I mean by disruptive changes. Um, and really look at how they have changed over the years and maybe historical changes and like modern day changes. We're going to look at examples of that just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. But these strategies really are can be implemented in any aspect to really help you leverage and distribute for your personal and professional growth. What's your thoughts on disruptive changes, Jim? And
Done it all my life, I suppose. When you look back on it now and you think
Mhm.
about the disruptive changes, I mean, buy to let never existed when I first started,
Yeah,
and I suppose that's an early disruptor.
yeah,
The no money down deals never existed until I started kind of doing it. And that's a bit disruptive as well at the time, no money down. So you were never ever putting any of your own money into it, or you were taking all the money back out. And it's just, I suppose it's just things that uh, if you've got that entrepreneurial spirit and you've got that inventive, or you're not afraid to actually ask any question and
yeah,
work out how systems work, I think, and how the systems would work even better. I think that automatically kind of falls into the disruptive category, because you're always going to evolve and you're always going to make something better, and by making it better and improving it, you're automatically becoming disruptive to the industry it sits as it is the now. Look at, for example, the aviation industry when before
yeah,
Virgin, very, very quiet, very reserved, lounge seats, smoking on planes, stuff like that. You know,
yeah,
you just got on with it, and then Virgin came along and provided a totally different class of service and disrupted that market, and lifted that market as a result as well. Look at the estate agency business before video. Basically quill and ink. Most are still like that just now, believe it or
yeah.
not.
I know.
Photographs and descriptions and the hope for the best. That's kind of how the estate agency business works. But there is disruptors out there that use video in order to capture somebody's attention, because you're more likely to watch a video than you are to sit and read an article. It's just the way the paradigms evolved over time to the way we consume information.
Yeah,
We consume information by audio now, and we also consume information by watching it now. It's very rare that anybody actually goes to read articles now, but I still do it, and the reason I still do it is primarily because it allows my um, scope of knowledge and expertise to expand over time. So I go into that. The one thing I'm going through now is the PADI qualifications for being a diver.
okay.
And I noticed they've actually got them written, so I read that as well. But they've also got a video as well, which covers the same thing exactly on the same page. So you can watch the video, or you can read the article itself. But I just do the both of them to enhance that and to actually
Mhm.
get that knowledge in there, to make sure, because if you're 30 meters down or something like that,
And you
and
make a
you run out of
mistake.
air, you're dead. By the way,
Yeah,
there's no way you can go to the surface, because you're
you
about
have to come
four
up gradually.
times
Is that right?
the 4 times the air in your body. When you go to the top, it'll expand by 400% and blow up your lungs, because you'll not be able to breathe, you see, to put it
Yeah,
out and in. So you're kind of screwed. So this is why it's the way we consume information is changed, and it's disrupting a market.
yeah,
Who else is disruptors that we know? Any other disruptors that we know of?
yeah. I mean, like you make really good points there, Jim, and you talk about obviously learning there, and I'm going to talk a wee bit about embracing like lifelong learning and things.
Amazon.
Yeah, well, Amazon's Amazon's in here. The Amazon
When you think
network.
about it, a classic disruptor is Amazon, who took what was effectively online, what was delivery shopping and all the rest of it, and actually made it online and put everything in one place for everyone.
Yeah,
Now, when he first started, he had no idea this was going to happen. He just thought he could sell some books. And then he realized what he needed to do, and then it expanded and expanded and expanded from there. So he became a disruptor in his industry. Look at Musk, another disruptor,
Tesla, yeah.
who disrupted the car market, and
Yeah.
now electric cars are almost a commonplace thing, where it's almost like if you don't have an electric car or a hybrid, there's something wrong with you.
Do you know what's funny? I was away at the weekend up in Aviemore, and the amount of charging points and electric cars that I've seen, it just seemed to be, they were everywhere. And it was
Yeah.
just like everybody seemed to have a Tesla, or I can't remember what the other one's called. It's got the star logo on it. Anyway, but yeah, they
You're
just
maybe
seemed
just
to
in about the privileged few.
well,
I could
but where
afford
I
to buy
was,
cars like that.
it seemed to be very prominent that everybody was driving electric cars, and there was a lot of charging points as opposed to where we are. I mean, there's one or two, obviously, but Netflix is a good one as well as a disruptor. I mean, how they changed from the cinema and DVD, and obviously created this whole streaming platform, and then they're even doing like their own original content. Do you know, you get a Netflix original series, and they produce it, and
Netflix started out as a mail order video system. Because I remember when I
like
was living in,
Blockbuster.
in Canarchy, and when I was living at Canarchy, I had just moved from Durward, so we were probably around about early 90s.
Uh-huh.
Netflix was doing postal video, and I
Right.
remember getting the stuff through the post and then putting it back in and sending it back to them. So I remember at that time, but streaming, the broadband width and everything like that was never ever possible at that point in
Yeah.
time. But they still persevered with that model, and then they evolved because the new technologies came along to allow them to then go into the next level. Now, if they hadn't done the postal service and they hadn't built up a database of people, they wouldn't be the empire they are now.
That
And the
just shows you.
disruptor.
That just shows you, and I didn't know that until you just said it there. And a lot of people watching, and a lot of obviously maybe millennials and things, I was never aware that Netflix was anything before it appeared
Yeah.
a few years back. And it just shows all those years building up to that and been continually developing and innovating to get to where they are. And then all of a sudden they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Do you
people
know
just
who
think,
saw? Do you know who saw it at the time? Was Ian Hudson,
video
the
store, yeah,
audio and video
yeah,
person that sold all the so you got your television from Ian Hudson and stuff like that.
yeah.
He actually set that. He had a video place where you got your video rentals.
Yeah,
But then
I
I
remember that.
remember he actually saw that in America. His son had brought it back and saw it in America or something like that. And he says, we want to put that in there. And they talked about doing the mail order video thing. And I'm like, that just sounds daft.
Yeah.
See how you could instantly dismiss that without actually any knowledge or expertise or information in that field. So this is why a disruptor goes and finds out exactly the right information from the right people in order to ascertain if this is the right thing to do.
And everybody back in the day, I mean, obviously where we are locally in Leiden, it was Ian Hutchison's, and everybody went on a Friday and a Saturday to go and rent a video. I think Walker's followed suit as well, Walker's in Leiden, and it was
What happened
that,
to
and that was
Blockbuster?
Blockbuster. Do you know that I was watching Jimmy Carr at the weekend? But it was his talk show or his game show thing, and one of the questions, and there's only one Blockbuster left in the whole world, and I think it's in Oregon or something in America.
Yep.
And apart from that, they're done. Do you know what I
Wiped out
saw?
overnight
Yeah.
because they never saw it. Another disruptor. Was it Casio? The digital watch?
So the watch, yeah.
Digital watch? Timex went, no, nobody's gonna buy into that. It's like, didn't be daft.
They're all set with digital watches.
Disrupted the market completely. Look at how CDs disrupted the record industry.
Yeah.
Then look at how nobody ever thought there'd be anything else after that. Then digital download.
MP3s.
Then disrupted the CD industry, and
Yeah.
then the MP3, and then the digital download came after that.
Mhm.
And then you don't actually own records anymore. You just have access to a collection that you've bought
Yeah.
access to now. You don't physically own them anymore. And that's
Yeah.
another disruptor.
Spotify and iTunes and all the rest of it. Yeah.
So if you think about these companies that existed 20 years ago are no longer were at the top of the hill 20 years ago, are no longer
Yeah.
really top of the hill now. And the companies that are top of the hill right now will probably not be the top of the hill in 20 years' time. And some of the companies, you won't even have a clue who they are now because they've not even started.
Yeah. And that all comes down to, I mean, some can stay relevant, but they have to change with the times and innovate what they're doing to be relevant to the time and place
Yeah,
in 10, 20 years' time. Or they, again, like they fall off the end of the table.
Uber. Uber
Yeah,
disrupted the whole. Now, personally, I kind of thought, I'm not very sure, but I never even thought about it. But I kind of thought, why did I not catch on to that? Because I remember I used to sit in the pub and I used to think, wouldn't it be great if you knew when your taxi was coming? And then when it
exactly. Yeah,
arrived at the door, and I used to say to the taxi company, could you give me a ring? You know, could you get the person to give me a ring when they arrive at the door so I know? And I thought to myself, and you never thought anything else other than that. But all Uber did was these two guys just went, why don't we just put it into an app so people can
let's
see it
put
on
it
their
in an
phone?
app. Yeah.
Just like that.
And
See
you
how
think that, God, how that's so simple. Why did we not think of that?
so then yes, but we did think of it, but they implemented it.
Yeah.
That's the key here. And we've got to talk about this, understanding disruptive change. You
Hmm.
know, what is it? And we've just spoken about it briefly about what disruptive change is. It is significantly altering, replacing the existing methods and
Yeah.
products or markets. And these changes often start in niche. See how the niche thing, the
Yeah.
blockbuster thing, how that started? I mean, the Netflix thing, it was just a mail order system. Nobody really knew about it at all. And then all of a sudden, boom. That goes on the back of, if you hang around long enough,
Yeah.
it comes to fruition, doesn't it? Digital downloads. Look at Napstar when they first started. Napstar was doing it all the time, but they were doing
Yeah.
it illegally at that time. But look what it paved the way for, because the technology came along and the guy that was running Napstar actually ended up becoming part of Facebook.
Hmm.
He helped Facebook in the beginning as well and actually owned part of Facebook.
Which they were
So
paid off well.
yeah, so when you
Yeah.
think about how the disruptors actually formulate in that market, and I think that's what disruption's all about.
Yeah.
And the examples, as you said, is about well, you've got down here industrial revolution. You're
Just looking
absolutely
at like
right.
the historical ones, if we look at the Industrial Revolution and how it transitioned from, people hand producing things and then
Bib and
onto
brace
machines. Yeah.
for your machine for your
Hmm.
drilling holes. You just got the
Yeah.
wee brace out and you held the
Yeah, I
top
remember
out,
that.
and you just went and just pushed it down with your hand to drill a wee hole in the ground or in an object. And now
Hmm.
it's like zip zip zip. You just go
Amazing.
straight in with this and these are disruptive markets. I tell you, the company? It was Morgan.
Hmm.
So Blood on the Carpet was John Paul. ah, it was John Paul Jones, and I know it sounds daft, John Paul Jones, to but it was Sir John Paul or something like that. I can't remember. Blood on the Carpet it was called,
Hmm.
and he showed the example of Morgan, how they refused to change. Everything had to be done by hand, to build a Morgan, and he
Yeah.
worked out they were building like 7 to 10 Morgans a year in the factory. That was it, 7 to 10.
Yeah.
Their waiting list was about 2 or 3 years. And he was
Uh-huh.
like, well, if you could only build one more, you could bring your waiting list down, you could make a bit more money. And he says, why do you not use automated tools? No, 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 sir, there has to be like this. And the cost of the Morgan was going up. It's a really good one about an example of how industries, in the car industry, for example, completely disappear because
Yeah.
the refusal to automate. Look how the Japanese came in, and now how the Chinese is coming in to disrupt the electric car market.
Hmm.
The BYD, is it, or BDY or whatever, the Chinese car company. Yeah,
BYD is it?
yeah,
I
and
can't.
they're going to undercut. They're going to undercut Tesla, no bother, and I think that'll be available to the mainstream. So you can see how, if this is what happens with a disruptor market, and when you actually end up getting high margins, you get a low entry person coming in and trying to do volume with
Hmm.
to undercut you and actually take the market share. This is the difference between Apple and Samsung,
Hmm.
Apple and Android. Apple, high margin product. Android, low margin volume product.
Value product. Yeah.
Although a lot of people still use Apple, Apple's got fantastic marketing. But see how Apple disrupted the market.
Yeah.
And do you know how the MP3 player came about?
No.
Richard Branson.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. He had talked about it in a podcast years ago as a joke for April Fool's Day. He actually
Right.
put an April Fool's post out saying Virgin was going to produce this wee handheld device that you could have, and you could put all your songs on it, and you could be able to listen to any time you want. Steve Jobs picked up on it years later and actually made the iPod
And
as a
actually
result.
made it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was all because of that. Just stimulated the thinking, and he thought, well, we've got the technology to do that now. I'm going to do it. Whereas Richard Branson was like, well, it was only a joke.
Yeah. But then that
But
just shows it just demonstrates as well how people, do you know, if you push yourself to actually follow through with things and not, I mean, some people might have that might hold them back because they might have these ideas or don't want to put something out there or ask or say the wrong thing. Like the Chinese and the Japanese and things, they're really light years ahead of a lot of the world
but
because
but, but what
they
happened to
innovate, they
what happened
innovate.
to the Japanese? Where are the Japanese? They're
Yeah,
not
I
here
know.
anymore.
No heard Dennis for them for a long time. Yeah.
Exactly. Because everything used to be made in Japan. Every
Mm-hmm.
time you went to a shop, you looked underneath it. I mean, you looked at something that was made in Japan. Because
Yeah.
Japan realized about the improvement, the Kaizen. It just take something that somebody else
Yeah.
has got, just make it a bit better. But what Japan failed to realize that on the hot on their heels eventually was the Chinese. And the
Mm-hmm.
Chinese was like, they were prepared to work night and day at very low cost. That's what they were doing to them, their workers. And therefore, they were able to deliver a product just as good, well, a wee bit of compromise in quality,
Yeah.
and sell it into that market and replace the Japanese. And even start to replace the Americans because transportation costs and that tumbled as well as a result of using big mass, like Boeing's big, huge, mega jumbo
Yeah.
jets. It would carry all the stuff from one place to another, and then super tankers as well with things that would disrupt. So, see, these are all things that have actually changed in the Industrial Revolution in automobiles. From the horse-drawn carriage to the
Yeah.
Ford Model T when it was first came out. So
Yeah.
disrupting is in order to be in the best position possible, you need to find an industry you can disrupt. Most industries can still be disrupted, definitely. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even at some point in time, Uber will be disrupted and knocked off their pedestal. Airbnb will be disrupted and knocked off its
We don't know
pedestal.
what that'll be yet, but there will be something that will come around.
Well,
Technology and
I think
everything.
we've all got an idea. I think we've all got some sort of ideas ourselves, but you actually don't realize how close you are to the truth and how, and because you don't know what you don't know, you then don't know how to implement it and make something out
Yeah.
of it. So this is when you come to somebody and we all say this at some point in time, oh, but I had the idea. Well, did you
Yeah.
do anything about it? No, you didn't. So
It was
you're
like,
not the disruptor then, are you? You
it
maybe
was
have the
like you
idea.
with the Indeed idea, Jim. You had that.
Yeah. So internet, I suppose, was an
Yeah.
evolution as well. That came from education. So 1960s, the internet was used for education, just between education organizations. So through schools and universities, they used the internet, and the
Share
internet was
information.
built for the
Yeah.
education process. And that's all it was used for. And then eventually it was like, well, wait a minute, this is actually getting all faster. Technology is getting better.
Mhm.
Bandwidth's getting larger. Therefore, we can push more data. I remember when it was dial-up, where you had to dial up your phone, and you were in the middle of Quake 3 or something like that in the middle of the night, and you're gaming with somebody else around the world, and then all of a sudden you'd go, and then you'd wait for it to start again.
Yeah, and then just wait for
And
it
then
to
by that
start
time,
back
somebody
up.
had killed you. By that time, somebody had killed you because somebody in America probably had broadband, hardwired.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you were relying on your dial-up phone, which was crap, for want of a better phrase. So that's the things that can happen. Now, what comes out of that, though? What comes out of disruptive changes? Well, it's a huge shift in terms of technology, but it's a
Mhm.
huge shift in terms of jobs and retraining as well. And every single time, everybody goes, "Oh, we're all going to be laid off, and we're all never going to have a job, and the workforce is going to be reduced by about 30%." It's like, excuse me, what happened to the paperless office?
Yeah. I know. That never
It
happened.
didn't.
That never.
It didn't. And it just became more entwined with everything
Yeah.
else. And what it did was the
It became a
computerization of
combination
everything
of yeah.
and digitization of everything. It just evolved with more jobs in these industries. So all this is we then have to retrain for a different sector when you
Yeah.
get disruptive technologies. You just retrain for different sectors. That's it, and you
That,
have to be adaptable and flexible to these ideas in these industries if you want to survive.
And that's where we got, like, I've put AI in here, and AI and machine learning and things as well. And that's where everybody thinks
You
going
know
to
what?
replace us, and it's not.
I think, Richard, and I'll say it, I think that AI is the biggest lot of shit going.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
like, it is a real red herring.
mhm.
AI has been around for years, and the way people all they're
I
doing
think
is
it's
they're
just huge.
labeling what was been around for years as AI now. And
Yeah.
this thing about AI and how it'll do everything for you and all the rest of it, it's like, this has been around for years. You're just calling it AI now in order to sell it to someone
Yeah. To
at a
try and
higher
push it out.
price
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
This is all they're doing. So machine learning and everything like that as well. It's, oh, you can get somebody to do this and get somebody. What? I mean, I saw the Bobby Charlton thing where he was saying, Bobby Charlton saying England didn't deserve to win. There's a thing, and saying if you
Yeah.
look at the goals it was done, and you look at the goals was done, and how they just got past the post. And 1966 was a crock of shit, according to Bobby Charlton's. Bobby Charlton died last year, by the way. So how could
Mhm.
he be commenting about the Euros the now if he died
Yeah.
last year? So it was obvious it was an AI generated technology, and it's
Right.
like, and what, and when you look at that, you go, and what's your point? It's
Mhm.
like, what will it do? Uh,
What purpose is that going to serve? Yeah.
Yeah, what purpose is it going to serve? And how? Because we're all, and you know what the purpose is going to serve? It's going to create an industry of an AI protection. And
Yeah.
in
To
other
monitor
words,
that. Yeah.
yeah, to protect you, the industry in AI, and in other words, the copyright protection is going to
Mhm.
expand as a result of that. And
To
because
protect you and your information
yeah,
and things.
people will be using that information and they'll do that. So see how all these things then create more jobs that you never think would have existed before, but all they do is they just create more jobs. And then what they do is they then disrupt an industry, but then they also create another problem. It has to be solved
Which is the
out
data
of that.
protection thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's all different things. I mean, what's happened to blockchain? What's happened
Yeah.
to crypto?
I know. I put crypto in there, obviously, but I mean, dare I say it? People still do it, but I mean, to me, it's just a load of rubbish, to be honest. And where is it now? I mean, I know there is still some people that muck about with crypto and like you say, blockchain and things, but
There's
I mean,
maybe some people making an absolute fortune out of crypto still. There's maybe somebody making a fortune out of using blockchain and stuff like that,
I still can't get my
there's
head around the cryptocurrency and how it actually then transpires into, do you know, money in your hand, basically, or money in your bank.
yeah,
Because I've yet to
it's
hear anybody tell me.
but it's not something that I would want to get involved in because it
No.
takes me away from our core competence, which
Yeah.
actually is an industry which will be around for years, and
Hmm.
it's called housing
Yeah.
because everybody needs a house to live in. So estate agency, letting agency, it might be streamlined in some sort of way. It might be made simpler. I doubt it with the amount of legislation coming in. However, and everybody needs a roof over their head. So it's more or less a dead cert industry. And plus the fact is being a property investor, you might have new regulations coming in and all the rest of it. And there might not be opportunities to make money anymore in it. There will be opportunities to make money, but it might be in a different way. So you just have to wait to see what transpires out of it, and without the fear mongering that comes with it. This is what happens when people start to disrupt markets. They
Hmm.
start to upset the mainstream element, and then they all panic and start going on about, you see the stories all the time. Oh, there's rent controls. Oh, there's Section 21, getting taken away down south, and it's doom and gloom, and I'm selling up tomorrow, and it's like, go on, get lost, just go. Don't give me your neg. It's like, I know where the industry is going. I understand it completely. Everybody needs a roof over their head. And at some point, when I assess if the market's not viable to be in anymore, that's the day I'll just sell off and I'll
Yeah,
move
but
on
I
to
mean,
another industry.
but you've made a few good points, and I'll just recap, because I think when we look at disruptive changes and things, and how yourself, Jim, through your own journey with property, and how originally, like you say, buy-to-let lending and things, I mean, it was basically non-existent, and you looked at how and like you say, when you went to the banks, there was nothing like that. There was nothing there was no, their products weren't there, and then that was all put in place, and over the years, and you were a big part of that originally, and then even now, when you look at as an agent and your digital marketing strategy, and you really led the way and thought, right, I need to do video here, I need to get in front of people like what we're doing now, And thankfully, you took me on that journey with you, and that's why we're sitting on this show just now. But it just shows you how changing and embracing that disruptive change and implementing it into what you do has a profound effect on your own success and your wealth and you know what you're building and what you're doing.
Yeah. And it's technology that allows you to do that, and it's using it
Yeah.
effectively in order to maximize the return on the investment you're making. And the classic example is, could we sit on a Monday afternoon in a hotel room,
Mhm.
and do a wealth creation show every Monday, and everybody have to turn up, it needs to watch this or watch this later, and never gets to see it? It's impossible. So
Mhm.
technologies have allowed us to do that. So we should embrace technology, and we should embrace AI in some shape or form, and
Yeah.
however it transpires, and all the rest of it. The claim about AI is going to solve all our health problems, it's like, no, AI is just collating all the information together from
Streamline
us.
how we do things.
They're just taking all our information that's in the sphere and on the internet and in the cloud, and AIs are just a big massive computer. It brings it all together and thinks, okay, the majority of people are thinking this, so this
Yeah.
must be the reason. And they can do it'll probably be, they'll be able to do fast calculations. So I think most people are actually jumping on this bandwagon and getting carried away as investors, especially in the chip companies like Nvidia. And then there's another one just been bought for an astronomical sum from Britain by, I can't remember who bought it, but another organisation who are involved in chip manufacturing. So there's a huge. It's investors just get a flurry, and they're just like, oh,
Yeah.
where can I put my money? And it's like, where's the next technology? Where's the next best thing? And where's the rising market? They're just caring about the return. They're not caring about. They couldn't care less about what it is they're investing in, as long as it's going to make money.
As long as they're getting a return. Yeah.
So this is why you have to get as much information on what it is you want to do, or what it is you want to invest your time in order to understand what the return on investment of your time and your efforts will be, and then put that down and think to yourself, is that worth my efforts?
Yeah. And
But
that's all comes down to, sorry, on you go.
But then you've got to then understand is like, what technologies could come along eventually that could actually make this a lot more streamlined and a lot more efficient. So when I first started in buy to let, for example,
Yeah.
we had to write to the council to tell them about a council tax change. We had to write a letter, a
I
handwritten
was just going
letter,
to say,
to the
ink and
council
paper,
to
yeah.
tell them a tenant had moved in and a tenant had moved out. And I went, oh, this is ridiculous. I could just put this on a computer and I could just print off a same template. I could fill
Yeah.
in the blanks, systematize this, and I could just churn it out, sign it, and send it in the post. And that's
Mhm.
what I did when I first started, because I was working full time at the same time. So I did
Yeah.
that at night. And then we got them to accept fax, because fax became a legal document. And I thought, perfect. So then I got a fax card installed into my computer. And
Yeah.
then I used to take it out and I used to plug it into the phone line at night. And then I used to send all my letters via fax to them
Yeah.
straight off my desktop. So therefore I never need to print them out. So see how the paper industry
Paper,
suffers
yeah.
and that technology suffers. See how the mobile, telephone industry starts to expand. And then they go, wait a minute, we could put investment into this to streamline. So you see how everybody starts to disrupt that process and think, what do we need to do to support that industry,
Yeah.
to create that industry to grow? And that's why the buy-to-let mortgage appeared. Because then all the banks started to realize that people like me 30 years ago, when we all
Mhm.
first started in buy to let, were actually buying properties to rent, and we were getting commercial loans at that time, or we've got no way of getting loans. And they thought, this is a market we could actually get mortgages for and exploit this market, because it's going to be a boom market, because they saw the lack of housing with the council house sell-off, and then they realized the opportunity as well when we were doing it. So that's why the buy-to-let mortgage came about, for that reason. And then you've got other lenders who have come into the market and tried to disrupt that and build up over time. So that's typically how the buy-to-let market evolved, and that's how it began to grow, because the government weren't building any houses, and they still won't build any houses.
Still haven't.
Yeah, I mean, even Scottish government's given up on the 110,000 they committed themselves to. They've
Mhm.
said that time and time again. They said it the other day, actually. We're not going to be able to build
Yeah.
110,000 properties in the next 10 to 11 years. It's not possible. affordable housing, because we've just not got the resources, not got the money, and we don't, and I genuinely don't think they have a clue. I don't think they know how to do it.
At least now they've been upfront and actually saying the truth rather than false promises or empty promises, for housing.
It's crazy though, because the private sector and people like me know exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, why have you not got us on consultation teams? Why have you not got
Why
like
do they not have
finance
people
committees,
on?
housing
Yeah.
committees from the private sector? Actually, you get together and you say, right, okay, we want to do this. How do you think we can do this? And then we go, well, this is how you could do it, because it's obviously in our interest to do that, because then it benefits us as well.
Yeah.
And
that's where,
that's how disruption happens.
yeah, and that's where in any industry or any kind of situation, you need to identify, right, okay, I'm not sure how to do this, or I'm not sure how this could be implemented. Let's find the people that do and sit down together,
or let's create the thing that it does and
yeah,
do it
okay.
ourselves. So it's like we need to reinvent something. Disruptive. Nobody else will really float their boat with us, but accountants and stock controllers and all the rest of it will, and management accountants will have a field day with us. They'll be in their element. The just-in-time stock system.
Okay.
It's like where all the money was tied up in stock in most manufacturing companies, because they held massive amounts of stock and millions of pounds worth of money tied up just in stock sitting in warehouses. And then people like Dell came along, the guy Dell, I can't remember his first name, but
yeah.
he came along and said, how do we get this quicker? How can we get this? So how can we get this system quicker so we don't need to tie all our money up in there and in stock sitting in a warehouse? And some of this stock will end up being obsolete. So how do we get this quicker? And then and his team says, you're not going to be able to get it quicker. It's no possible. And then he managed to actually convince them to go down bit by bit and reduce the amount of stock held to the point they got into a just-in-time system. Now, the just-in-time system for me appeared when I was at college training. So that's when they started talking about just-in-time stock systems as part of the procedures. And that was in the late 80s and early 90s. So you see how that's disrupted the market, and actually very few companies actually hold stock anymore. They actually look at Amazon. It's all the suppliers that hold the stock. And all they do is work as an intermediary now and an affiliate to them. So they put all their business through them and send it out direct from them, rather than have to go through Amazon. But Amazon do keep some of their own stuff as a result, because some of the things that they know they'll make money on, and some of the things that they know they can hold at a low cost level in order to get that sent out. So Amazon's another disruptor to that industry. What's happened overnight to what's happened over the years to the Royal Mail? Gone.
Yeah, I know. Slowly dwindling away.
Yeah. Email disrupted it. And now, messaging, WhatsApp, all these things are disrupting that. Very few people actually open emails anymore. Very few people. If you send out anything on an email, very few people open it. If you send out in WhatsApp, 90% of people open it.
Instant messengers definitely taking over from email.
Because you're getting straight into somebody's hands. This is why video is so important when you're in a state agency, because you're getting straight in front of people. You're not asking them to go to a website.
Because it's on.
They are not going to a website anymore. They are not needing to, because you're getting right in front of them on social media platforms with sponsored adverts. They're not needing to come and find you. You're finding them, but you're actually getting a whole load of their data as well. And they're looking for property. You know that they're looking for property in your area. So therefore, that's why if you understand how to build a campaign, that's why your advert for your property, for that person's one property, goes right in front of that person that will probably want it.
Yeah,
that's what's important, because then they're not going to a huge shopping centre and like Rightmove and then getting a choice of property. They're getting only to see your property. That's why you use an agent for digital marketing strategy. Yeah, it knows what they're doing. It understands the technology at hand and how to utilise that best of all in a low-cost, effective delivery system.
That's when it comes down to the education part of things and really understanding. And being able to implement strategies and things and leverage the changes and embrace really a lifelong learning. I mean, Jim, you're a big advocate of that. Just continually learning and picking things up and always asking questions and to understand the why. and how behind things, which will then help you understand what you need to do to then better yourself and push things forward. And like I say, leverage your current position and what you're doing. Like you say, from this change from the digital marketing things, from just basically pictures and descriptions and property. You know,
If you're not a continuous learner,
Mhm.
you will never go any further forward than where you are right now, because what you've learned so far has got you to where you are. In order to get to the next place that you want to be, you have to learn something new, or you would have been there already. So, and so if you're not a continuous learner and you're not prepared to learn anymore, then you're going to stay exactly where you are right now. And if you don't like where you are right now, you better change that.
Yeah, yeah, and you really need to embrace change and pushing yourself outside that comfort zone, in order to be able to change and adapt so that you can move forward. Because, like you say,
So,
everything you've learned got you where you are. But if you want to get to the next part, and your next goal, you're going to need to learn more or learn from someone else that's
so
done it
here's what
before you.
here's what I do, and you've put a couple of pointers here. I do
Mhm.
stay absolutely curious about everything. I'm
Yeah,
learning just now about Ozempic. Now Ozempic's a
yeah,
weight loss
the
drug and all
diet
the
thing
rest
in
of it.
America. Yeah,
But there's certain things, and it's tiny micro doses of Ozempic. Actually, I'm learning the fact it actually can sort out other things as well, but not anything to do with weight loss. It's like, whoa,
was
wait
it
a minute.
originally a diabetic thing? Is that right?
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
evolved into that. So I'm learning about it, but I'm not going, oh, give me it now, the wonder drug. It's like, no, I just want to learn about it and keep
Mhm.
learning about it. SAS, the self-administered pensions.
Yeah, the
I'm
pension.
learning about that right now as well, because I think that's a market I will be able to utilize in order to provide further funding from my pension fund into my buy-to-let portfolios and
Right.
build and how I could build. So I'm self-financing effectively in terms of what I'm doing,
Mhm.
but I'm making good use of the money and I'm making a higher return on my investment as a
Yeah.
result of that. That's my belief that what will happen. But I've yet to prove that. That's okay. Exploring the new interests. There's no doubt about it. Every single time I go into different areas and not anything to do with property, just in health, because health's a big thing for me. I want to live a lot longer, but I want to live to an age where I can actually still do a triathlon at 100 years old. So that's what I want to do. I want to still be able to do a
Yeah.
triathlon at 100 years old. And in order to be able to do that, you must understand your body and how it interconnects with your mind, but also how to stop bathing in all these beauty products.
Yeah. You
Now,
say that to me
see,
quite a lot.
see, see, a lot of young people now bathe in toxic chemicals every single day.
These
All
bath
that
bombs
crap
and
on your skin every day, you're basically absorbing it straight into your system. It goes right round your blood. It goes straight to your brain, and over a period of time, it will have a damaging effect. There's no doubt about that. It's just like no putting your additive into your petrol anymore because you've got an old
yeah,
car. You know how they changed it and they took certain additives and the rings wore on the pistons and everything like that. Well, this is what this is like. The amount of people that just bathe in all these toxic chemicals now. And I'm a bit nervous even about putting sun cream on because it goes straight into your system. It
yeah.
goes straight into your bloodstream and it goes right around. So, you've got to really think about what you're doing here. I'm a big
Mhm.
advocate of less is more, definitely, when it comes to things like that. And
And
eating great stuff and stop eating all the crap. It's like these are all lifelong learning things that I learn in order to disrupt the market, in order to probably be the person that does live to 120 years old and does do the triathlon at 100 years old. And
I
everybody
was going
goes,
to say it'll be interesting to see, but I
and then
might not
that's when
be.
everybody goes, how the hell did you manage to do that? And it's like, well, if you look back to the Wealth Creation Show on the 15th of July,
Yeah,
2024, you'll see episode 131. You'll see exactly what I was talking
yeah,
about in the very beginning, and how I was telling everybody this is what you shouldn't be doing. Now, this is just not me. This is clinical people that have got
yeah.
specialists in their field saying this is what's happening. I am beginning to realise that it's what my assumptions were over the years are actually, yeah, you were right.
Yeah.
But it was obvious. But people just want to ignore that. They're convinced by the amount of marketing goes on round about them that this is what they should do. And that is another disruptive industry, marketing. In terms of,
Marketing. Yeah,
and you have to protect yourself from that.
I mean, I've included in here, obviously, staying physically and mentally healthy and things as well. But do you know, it's really interesting when you see it, and a lot of people don't just take that minute to step back and actually think about the amount of different things that they put into and onto their body every day in terms of what they eat and what's in what they eat, and like you say,
Yeah,
products. And when you put it all together, you think, God, that's a lot that you're doing every day, drinking and eating and
yeah.
applying things, and then people wonder how they become ill and have got the repercussions further down the line in life, and have difficulties with their health and things.
This is how people start to justify it in their mind. Oh, life would be a lot more. Well, life would be really boring if I didn't have all that
Boring
stuff.
without all these things, yeah.
It's like, no, it wouldn't be. Trust me. I tell you what, you just do something else more exciting, and
Hmm.
and it doesn't affect your health,
Yeah,
definitely. When you just look at it, and this is an industry that it does disrupt health, and in some, and not in a good way. When you drink a pint of beer, it's just a pint of chemicals.
yeah.
We're no meant,
Alcohol and
we're
nicotine
not
combined
meant to
with stuff
consume
like
ether. We're not meant to consume alcohol. Alcohol's
that.
not. It's a
Definitely,
poison to
yeah.
the body, and that's why you end up being high as a kite and drunk, because it's a
Mhm.
poison to your body. So when you're drunk, you're actually poisoning your body. No,
Yeah,
and people will say, "Oh well, I can't do without alcohol." Again, it would be a boring place, and it's like, oh well, I might imagine living a boring life and then dying bored, and I would rather go out with a bang. It's like, no, you didn't need to live like that. No,
yeah,
it's no an either or here. It's like there's a balance here somewhere, and you've got to find that balance. But excess of anything, no matter what it is
yeah,
bad for you. Excess of anything, even if you ate a health food product and you had all that all the time and huge excess, it will kill you eventually.
yeah. Everything in moderation, I think, is what my mum used to say, and still does actually.
It
But
is.
yeah,
It is. But we are human beings and we look for excess in everything. It's
mhm,
human nature to do that. And lifelong learning is something that you really need to embrace in order to do that. I think leverage disruption as well, engaging with community. So you talked about things like joining clubs. I mean, for me personally, it's Diary of a CEO, because I could
yeah,
learn a lot there, and the people on there are actually all vet, and there's some things he doesn't put on there when he does a podcast for them. So I'm quite happy. That's a good platform for me. I align with that platform and
mhm,
the way these things are taught immediately. So I do that. And certain types of books I do as well. The one I'm reading just now is how to deal with a gamer. Like
right,
how to grow up and able to steer your son or your daughter in the right direction is addicted to gaming. And
yeah.
what you should be saying, how you should be saying it, how you should be delivered. Now I know I'm a bit late in the day because mine are all grown up. However, it's still something I want to learn
Oh,
about
interesting.
because
You could learn, but yeah,
because it's an industry which will become disruptive, because the mental health industry is an industry which will end up growing for that reason,
yeah,
because all see the side effects. It's the side effects that happen from everything else. So as you implement something new for the first time, it ends up disrupting something else and causing a problem somewhere else. So then you have to then go and sort that problem. These are all the different things. Engaging with communities, attending workshops and conferences are really important. There's no doubt about that. I'm going to start to attend a lot more as well, and I still do attend stuff. I get around the right people that I know it's relevant for me, and I learn from them as well as a result of that. So I'm not afraid to do that. I'm not afraid to travel to the other end of the country. I'm
yeah,
not afraid to travel to the other end of this other end of the world if it will the knowledge and expertise and actually the being with that person will actually help me in the future as a result of that.
yeah,
Now, probably a good example of that is you've got the Australian Real Estate Conference. Now,
yeah.
we went to the American real estate conferences in the early 2000s, or the late, no, the late 2000s.
It's
And as a
2011.
result of that, I learnt a lot of technology that everybody else is using now, and they're
Yeah.
they're calling it a new technology. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, we got rid of that 10 years ago.
Mhm.
It's like that's old news, that stuff.
Yeah.
And people are still using it now and saying it's brilliant, it's a great tool, and it's like, no,
Yeah, we're
that's
past that
that's
now.
old technology. And it's you're disrupting industries all the time in terms of what you're doing, and by becoming a disruptor, then you're blazing a new trail. Therefore, but the thing you got to watch about being a disruptor is you do not want to be the trailblazer that does all the work to blaze the trail for everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like you say, because then everybody's going to reap the benefits of what you've obviously worked so hard to do. Yeah,
Just come in and steal your lunch. That's
yeah,
basically it.
steal your
So
lunch.
you've got
Yeah,
that's how you've got to have proprietary information. That's how our systems are built, and no one knows how they're built and joined
yeah,
together. And the reason for that is because no one can replicate it then. Therefore, we still continue to become a disruptive industry to our industry of lettings and sales
yeah.
in terms of what we're doing.
People will look for the outside and think, God, how are they doing? They should be looking for the outside and thinking, God, how are they doing what they're doing? Because they don't know the actual system and how to implement it.
Yeah. I had
And
an
the only way, yeah,
EPC, ESPC, so the Edinburgh Solicitors Property Centre and
yeah,
the Tayside Solicitors Property Centre. I went and scanned their QR code on the board the other day, and it doesn't go direct to their property.
does it just go to the website?
It just goes to a list of properties that they've got available
Yeah,
for sale. That's it.
rather
So
than
you then,
that specific
so when you're
property.
passing their for sale board or the lettings board, and you scan the QR code, you're then having to look to see which one it is. And it's like, I'm out for a walk. I'm not out to look for
Yeah,
the property. So therefore, we've made it really easy. You can scan the QR
it's right
code. It
to the
goes
listing.
direct to that person's property. Because imagine the person has got their board up with other agent now. It's got the QR code in it. And if I went to them and says, did you realize that when I scan your QR code, they don't actually see your property, but they get to see everybody else's property is competing against you?
Yeah,
It's like, what? Sorry? You put an advert on my board for my house showing
but
other
that's what
people's
everyone else
properties.
is. Yeah,
That's what everybody else is doing. That's not what we're doing. We're
no,
going, no, just your property, nobody else's. But they don't understand how to replicate that in a cost-effective way because they've still not worked out the technologies available for it, where we have. And I've
because it's
spent
so
about
much
6
easier
months
just to
to a
have the
year trying to
same.
work this out.
Yeah, because it's so much easier just to have the one QR code on the same one on all the boards, obviously.
Of
But
course it is, because it's cheap and cost-effective. They can
yeah,
just produce the same board all the time with the same QR code. But to produce in mass and economies of scale, whereas to produce a QR code on a board separate for each property means you've got to then set up a template for every single property. It's different. And that's
mhm,
not cost effective to do in an estate agency industry. That's why we've devised a system where we have waterproof stickers that we can just stick on the board. But
mhm,
nobody knows how to get the waterproof stickers, where to get
yeah,
the technologies to do that. Whereas we've worked it out and got all these technologies. So the only way anybody's going to find that out is if they actually end up coming to work for us and steal that idea or steal
or
that
come to you and
technology.
ask you, but then you're not going to tell them.
Which they can't, because a lot of it's white labeled, so they don't know where to get it.
Yeah,
Or they need to buy us and buy the proprietary technology. It comes
yeah,
with it and the expertise. But that would cost a lot of money because
mhm,
that'll go on forever, that technology.
yeah,
And they still won't work out how to do it.
yeah. And that I mean, the next point I'd put in there is teaching others. And obviously, we talk a lot about mentorship. And do you know how teaching is a really powerful way to reinforce your own learning and learn from others that have done before you. But like you say, obviously, only if they're willing to learn, to give you that information to learn from. But
It's the failure and success. I mean, here's a classic example right now of the mentorship and the teaching others and all the rest of it and learning
yeah,
from other people as well.
yeah,
Gareth Southgate
right.
last night. He got them to the finals.
Hmm.
And yet there's folk discussing this morning about whether you should be getting rid of him. It's like, what? Sorry?
But
This
yeah,
is
and
like
well,
this is like getting 99% in your exam and everybody else going, what happened to the other 1% though?
do you
It's
know,
like,
I'm not a big football person, but I watched it last night, and as England were walking across, and he come up, and they were like, "Ah, that'll be him getting the boot," and I'm like, "All right, okay," but
that's
then,
mental, eh? Why would you get rid of somebody that got you to that stage? All
mhm,
you need to do is give them the chance to let them work out how to get to the next stage after
yeah,
that, because that's the bit in there. No, I tell you what, we'll take an unknown
and
and then
start
we'll
at the
try
start
it
again.
again, all from beginning.
Yeah,
That's how our governments run. We'll take unknowns and we'll just put them back into power 4 or 5 years
yeah,
later, and they'll start all over again trying to work out how to do this. And it's like, are
Mhm.
you off your head? It's like that, and I suppose, to a degree, sometimes disruption in certain industries are not beneficial.
Mhm.
Definitely not beneficial sometimes. They,
Yeah.
they can't be, because they disrupt an industry and then they
Yeah.
upset it. And I tell you a classic industry which is disrupted, and it's not an industry really, it's the education system.
Mhm.
Let's try this out and see how we get on. Let's get students to pay for their, and rack them up with loads of debt. And it's like,
Yeah.
flipping
Let's
heck, are
let's
you
let's roll things
nuts?
out and see how it works, rather
Are
than
you nuts?
testing it.
It's like,
And I've put in like critical thinking and developing critical thinking and now analysing the things. Like you say, rather than just rolling things out and seeing how it goes, actually think about like, okay, right, how could we adapt and change this so it works better and moves things forward from where we are, rather than, like you say, pushing a reset or completely going in a completely opposite direction. I think you really need to think properly and analyze where you are, and it all comes into, I've got here, analyzing and evaluating and problem solving as well, which is a big part of day-to-day life for anybody that's in industry, or which has got, who have got a business, or obviously in your day-to-day job. You really need to think outside the box, rather than look for the easy option or the easy way to avoid something rather than resolving it.
that's
That
that's
makes
where you
sense.
come to that's where you come to sometimes disrupting industries. It's I know it's contrary to what it is, but I think it's a case of
We're going to say slow down and speed up.
quick to change, but slower to implement.
Right.
And the reason I say you change, think about changing quickly, but the implementation process should be a bit slower, just in case, because you could wipe out your whole industry overnight just by changing.
So you mean like identifying, right? This is what we need to
Yeah, well,
do.
look at the other way around.
But, but gradually, yeah.
Look at how long it took Kodak and Polaroid to change the digital, and they're out
Mhm.
of business. They're gone.
Yeah.
And because they didn't change.
Took too long.
But they should have seen the technology, and then should have gone down the road of actually doing the research and development, improving it to themselves, and then testing the market, and then implement it, and
Yeah.
then getting on with it. Once they knew it was definitely going to do it, right? Let's get it done and let's get it implemented. So quick to implement. Possibly, you need
A
to
wee
do all
bit
the testing
slower.
and process, and that's how you disrupt an industry. But you can also start and just make money and then work on it as you go. And this is the old adage about jump out the window and learn to fly on the way down.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a
definitely.
really good one for problem. Because I tell you what, when you're on your way down and you're flying on the way down, you're
If the
for
ability to
some
fly
reason
gate will learn
your
it quicker.
problem solving automatically changes overnight, and it becomes
Mhm.
so quick in terms
Mhm.
of making decisions, because you're now at the point where this has to be done, or
You're forced into
it's
that point.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's the end. Now, I'm no saying run out and get a buy-to-let mortgage and force yourself in a position where you're under pressure financially. No. Think about the process and think about the risk and all the rest of it, and then analyze that first, and then say, okay, it makes absolute sense. Let's get on with it. So in the beginning, it was me proving the model and then saying, right, once I've got all the facts and information together, I've proved the model for buy-to-let. Let's do it. And the
Yeah.
next minute, I just took off and I started buying. I'll buy that. I'll buy this. I'll buy that. I'll buy this. I'll buy that. And it's, I'll have that one, and I'll have that one, and I'll have that one,
Yeah.
because I knew exactly the model
Because
worked.
you knew how it would work, and you knew what the result would be. And like
But
you say,
what I
it's
did was I tested it with one property, but I
uh,
hadn't even bought the property yet. I actually just tested it with an advert to see if anybody would jump on it and see if anybody would go at that price. And I got loads of inquiries, and I thought, flipping heck, this works. That works. I'll
yeah.
definitely buy the property. And then I did that, and then I started to formulate the process out of there. And that's why I ended up evolving into a financial freedom blueprint. Whereas I know exactly what to do every single time. It's just like
Mhm.
going through a production line and just taking your stamp every single time, going next,
Yeah.
next, 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 and that's all you're doing. So that's why buy to let is so systematic and process driven to me. So this is the key here, and I think I shared it with you guys this morning in my book when I was looking through about processes. I'm sure it was one of my friends that said it, about the process of a goal is going to get you a
Well, this is
one-off
what you
hit
said.
when you hit
Yeah,
the
you did.
goal. but a process and a system will
yeah.
will build that wealth from what you thought that goal was going to be. So in other
Yeah,
words, you can get that one hit wonder with a goal, but if you build a process and system with it, then that'll do that. That'll get that every single time.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that you
Uh,
did. You sent that over this morning. I was looking
it's
at.
the classic example is like, and I talked about at the weekend to someone actually. I talked about the buy-to-let business because they were going, I'm a bit too long in the tooth for that, and I'm like, well, do it for your kids or your grandkids or something like that. Leave it for them. Put in a limited company and let it grow for them. And I
Mhm.
says, do you know when I first started, it was like I planted a tree, and the tree grew and it gave some apples off. But instead of eating apples, what I did was I took all the apple seeds from the apples and then I planted all these as
Planting
well.
more trees, yeah.
And then I nurtured these. Some of them didn't happen, but a lot of them did happen. And then I grew trees with them as well. And then I thought to myself, okay, that's pretty good harvest. And what did I do? Oh, well, I'll tell you what, I'll take all the seeds again and then I'll plant them all again. Now, by this time, all the other trees we grew originally are still harvesting. They're still growing and providing harvests every single year. And then I planted more trees. And this is just like what I did with the properties. I
Yeah.
started just buying more property with the same receipts that I'm getting and the same money, and just putting it
And
back in the business every
reinvesting.
single time. And
Whereas you'll
that's
find
effectively all
people,
I do.
what people do is they'll start to build portfolios and things. They'll remortgage and take all the money out and they'll spend it
Look at
on
me, I'm
things.
rich. Let's go
Yeah,
on a holiday. Let's
which
have
is like,
first class. Let's travel business class. Look at me, I'm rich. Let's have a fast car. Let's lease a car. And I could be Mr. Flash or Mrs. Flash. You know, I could have all these different things. I could get a bigger house, and it's like not. It's like
mhm.
just and all I think about is like, what do I do with let's just put the money back in, put the money back in, put the money back in, put the money back in. And we need repairs and improvements. Yeah, we've got the money to do it. Fine.
Which is what
So I never ever built my lifestyle on the premise that the property would actually give me the income for it.
yeah,
What I do
and
day to day as an estate agent is where my income comes from.
yeah,
That's it.
and like what you say, that's like somebody they'll grow this tree and then they're just going to eat all the apples rather than plant more trees, and
Yeah.
that's basically
So I
what you're
tell you
doing.
what, I need some goose. I'll kill the golden goose that lays the eggs.
The eggs,
How am I not getting any golden eggs anymore? Well, you killed and ate the goose.
so that would end of that, yeah. And
Hello,
that's where you really need to
McFly.
yeah, I've got in here about adapting a growth mindset, and that kind of ties in with that quite nicely about reinvesting it. Obviously, we talk about property a lot because it's what we do, but reinvesting and watching it grow and nurturing that, and you always refer to feeding the baby and things. But yeah, embracing challenges throughout that whole process and learning from your failures. I mean, we've done whole shows on failures and things as well, and really understanding that failures are part of the whole learning process and using them as learning experiences as opposed to something negative. Definitely.
Show me
And
somebody that's never failed, and I'll show you somebody that's not a success at all.
yeah,
I've never done anything or amounted to anything. They've probably become a critic. That's probably what they've done. They've probably
yeah,
sat on the sidelines all their life while everybody else fought it out in the arena and actually thrown, things at them and criticised them at every
and
opportunity.
passing judgment. Yeah,
Yeah, that's that type of person. They've been a critic all their life of other people and be critical of other people, but they've never actually got in the arena and fought it out themselves. They've never been. They've never had the blood, mar, and sweat, and tears, and all the rest of it comes with it. Of being in the arena and working so hard to your hands bleed, and you've got
hmm
sores
oh,
on your hands and stuff like
yeah,
that, and you're tired and you're exhausted, and then you're just like, I'm still going to just keep going. I'm just going to keep going because once I get that, I could do this. I could
hmm
just rest, and then I'll keep going again when I've got more energy. I'll keep going, and then that's all they do. That's all these people do, and then you've got all these people that have never amounted to anything that sit on the sidelines and criticise them. Well, they'll be the ones that will work till they die
yeah,
because they'll never be able to retire. They'll never have the holidays they've ever wanted. All the things on their bucket list will never be achieved because they've never had any delayed gratification, or they've never sacrificed anything. They've
hmm
always wanted everything. This is quite an interesting one. This is a real interesting one. This is a real good quote. I was sitting writing down some things this morning, taking stock of where I am, because I always like to write down certain things. It's like, my grandfather walked 10 miles to his work every day, and my
hmm
father walked 5 miles. And I'm basically driving a basic car now, but my son's actually driving a better car, and my grandson, if he ever comes along, will possibly be driving an even better car, maybe even a Ferrari or something like that. But that said, my great grandson will probably be back working again. Now, why do you say that? Well, tough times create strong people, and strong people create easy times. And easy times create weak people, and weak people create tough times again.
So it's like a full circle.
Yeah, that's what happens. That's the cyclical. You notice it more predominantly in the Asian community when you look at that, because they don't want their kids to be shopkeepers, you know, because that's predominantly what they want, and they want their kids to be doctors and solicitors and all the rest of it. But can you see where that's going? It's like these are the parents are the ones that did the sacrifice and the hard work, but they want their children to be academics and professionals. It's like, oh, don't do what I'm doing. It's like, well, wait a minute, you were able to do that because they were doing what you were doing. It's like, my God, it's like if there was ever an analogy straight away that tough times create, easier times with tough people, and then eventually it gets the easier. The weak people then end up having to create. They end up creating tough times again because they're weak in what they've done.
The easier times then create the weaker people, which then creates the tougher times again.
Yeah, and it's a cyclical thing that goes on through generations. This is why when you get to like third generation in companies, the third generation are not as passionate about as the first generation was with the company when it first started, and it's difficult. And this is why a lot of people get nervous when they put their children in charge of the
When they
company.
pass things on,
Like the Murdochs. And I don't know if it'll eventually happen with the Bransons, where they take over the same company. But I know Richard's smart enough that he's put a team in place that run the company, and basically his son and his daughter will basically be overseeing. Overseeing the wealth creation, not actually making strategic decisions. And but that's the difference between what Murdoch and what Virgin's doing, what Sky and what Virgin do. Two different animals. One's a hereditary thing, which is the Sky through Murdoch, because he's going to make decisions, and one is not hereditary. It's just overseeing to make sure their wealth is still going to be created, but it's somebody else that's doing it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, and it's quite interesting when you say that about that full circle thing through the generations, how it changes and how it can change like that. Because one person's put their blood, sweat, and tears into it and created this thing, the other person's reaping the benefits of that and makes it, and it's so easy. And then because it's so easy, you come back again to where you've probably maybe worked through the fortune. I don't know. So you need to have things in place if you've got something to pass on to your future generations.
Well, it's what we talk about this. The next generation probably doesn't stay as physically and mentally healthily. They don't tend to be like that, and they've got other things that they want to do. They don't want to do what you're doing. It's like, let's be honest, it's like they weren't born to do what you were doing. If they want to do it, fair enough. If they don't, then let them do something else. Don't force them to do it. I know there's a difference between me and my brother. My brother is like stayed with the company, and he was more or less felt obliged to stay there, and I know he regrets it.
Dad's company,
I know he regrets it, but you kind of go back and change it now. So we started off at the same place. We were both working with my dad, and then we separated in separate ways. And like, where is he and where am I? And that's where you've got to think. But the benefit of that is he's got a larger family.
Yeah. So there's that. So he's done something different.
Yeah. So there's something I admire in where he is.
Yeah.
But then there's also something that he probably admires in where I am. It's the fact that I've got financial stability for everybody. So it's the trade-off, it's the balance. You do that, and the things that you do in order to get that.
Yeah, I did put I put case studies. Well, I say case studies, but it was just examples.
Netflix, Tesla, and Amazon. The ones I talked about.
The ones I never
even knew that.
Yeah, you already said that. So it was Netflix and Tesla and Amazon, and how these industry leaders and have really innovated how they do things to propel themselves really way ahead of everybody else. And it was funny because actually when you said them earlier, and I'm like, is he reading my thing on the wrong page? But yeah, so Netflix, Tesla, and Amazon's what I put in there because they were the three that I thought were really most prominent as good examples of disruptive changes that they've embraced, and look where they are in terms of their stature in the business world. I mean, it's just meteoric. Obviously, is probably the best word. I think to round up today, I think and recap, disruptive changes can really transform industries, businesses, and individuals to create a significant wealth and success through opportunity. And the real call to action is where you need to embrace the changes, invest in your education, really be proactive in identifying and leveraging these disruptive trends within whatever you're doing and what your business is as well. Any final thoughts, Jim?
I've got a really good thought. This is a great analogy. If you put bananas and money in front of a monkey, right, the monkey will choose the bananas because the monkey doesn't actually know that the money can buy a lot more bananas.
Yeah, because it doesn't, and you don't know what you don't
disruption. So if you offer, so in our society, if you offer someone work or a business to a person, they will choose to work because most don't know that the business will actually make more money than their salary eventually. So they just choose to work.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the reasons why people are so poor is because they're not trained to recognize the opportunity, and the school system teaches them to work for a salary instead of for themselves.
Like workarounds.
Yep, definitely. Profit, remember, is better than wages.
Mm-hmm.
It's also most tax efficient, actually. You can do a lot better with, that. The wages system is designed to take money in all the time. On a repeated basis, and that's why we've got PAYE and everything. So just remember that. So wages support you, but profit will actually set you free. So see how I worked, and the wages were what I lived on, but the profit I developed from the buy-to-let business was what ultimately set me free. So I worked on both of them.
Wasn't it your job? Your job was your portfolio.
But you see how the education system, that's the key here. The education system is designed to produce people at work for a salary, not look for opportunity to run a business. And you, in order to get yourself out of that mindset, you have to take some sort of, you have to learn from people that are possibly disruptors in their industry. You have to just learn from people that are more successful than you at this point in time. And then you'll find another person that will be more successful than that person once you get to that level. And then you find another person that's more successful than that person because you've now at their level as well. That's how you do it. It's just constantly climbing every single time. But make sure your ladder isn't positioned on the wrong wall, because you could get to the top and realize you just climbed the wrong mountain.
Yeah, and which would be a big waste of obviously.
That's why you've got mentors.
Yeah, to make sure you're using all this energy and your resources and whatever in the right way and on the right things, rather than just going to, like you say, if you get to the top of the ladder and you're up the wrong wall, then that could be quite detrimental and put you back years. And I've put in here as my final thought, and I wrote this down, and it's the future belongs to those who are prepared to embrace and drive forward with disruption.
Disruption. There's only one thing constant in this world, and it is change.
Yeah. So that's quite a good way to end that. And thanks so much, Jim, because you have got quite a lot of good insights and a lot of good analogies there to really demonstrate what we mean by disruptive changes and how it could benefit you as long as you embrace it and implement it in the right ways. So we'll leave it there today. That was a really good show. Thanks for that, Jim. Thanks to everyone for watching, and we'll be back next Monday as normal for the Wealth Creation Show.
Bye for now.
See you later, Jim.